Have you ever stood in your kitchen trying to decide what to eat and somehow 20 minutes later you're still standing there and the fridge is open and now you're like questioning your entire life? Do I even like eggs? Are eggs good for me? Should I be eating eggs? Are eggs in my macros? Why do I feel like I never know what to eat? And then suddenly what started as a very simple decision has turned into a full-blown identity crisis. Yeah, that's happened to me a few times. And it's so funny, right? But until it's not. Because, for a lot of us in this midlife era, it's really not just decisions about what to eat or what to wear. It's should I stay in this relationship or this job? Should I say something to the person that hurt me or just let it go? Should I keep doing what I've always done or is it time for something new? I mean, I was talking with a friend recently and she said something that I actually hear pretty often and she was like, "I feel like I can't even trust myself to make the simplest decision anymore." And so, here's what I want you to know is that if decision making, whether it's big or small, if it feels harder than it used to, you are not broken. You're just at a point in your life where the old ways of deciding like don't quite work anymore. So today we're going to talk about why decision making can feel complicated and how the Enneagram can actually help you cut through the noise and trust yourself again. Welcome to another episode of Enneagram Life Hacks. What is a life hack? Well, at its core, a life hack helps you solve a problem and live your life more effectively. Today, we're using the Enneagram to life hack decision making, and you're going to love this one. Hey, friends, and welcome to the Living Well Enneagram Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Stanley, and around here we talk about the Enneagram, real life, and what it means to grow and live well. Stick around to be inspired by real people, real stories, and real life application of Enneagram wisdom. So, decision making can be hard for a few reasons. One, the impact is real. Two, the inner noise is loud. And three, the old methods for decision making just aren't as appealing anymore. So, let's dive into those for just a second. So, first, we understand that the impact of decisions is real. In this season of life, decisions just carry more weight because it's not just about like what do I feel like doing today? It's bigger than that often. It's like, well, if I make this decision, how does it impact my family or my marriage or my friendships? What does it mean for my finances? Who am I becoming if I say yes or if I say no? What does that mean? It's like there's this awareness that wasn't always there before, and honestly, decisions are more about identity than they ever have been. And they also sometimes feel less reversible. There just seems to be a lot of pressure around making what can even sometimes be a simple decision because our lives are so intertwined with other people and our history, etc. Now, the second reason is because the internal noise is loud. I mean, when I sit down to make a decision, when you sit down to make a decision, it's rarely just this one clear voice in your head saying, do this. It's like a chorus up there, and they are saying, hey, be responsible. Don't be selfish. What do you think other people are going to think if you do this or don't do this? You should already be grateful. You have enough. Is it okay to do it? It's just these voices that get very loud very quickly. There's also, on top of that, this layer of fear that can creep in, and that sort of adds to the voices in your head because then there's the voices asking, well, what if I make the wrong choice? What if I mess it up? What if I can't undo it? So it's kind of the opposite of having clarity. It's just getting noise, and noise can make it really hard to trust yourself. The third reason why decision making can be hard is that we've outgrown the old strategies. And I actually think this is the good news. The strategies that have worked for us in the maybe in the first half of life, they just aren't as appealing or as natural to us as they used to be. I mean, maybe in act one of life, you were the one who always kept the peace, stayed strong, made sure things went off without a hitch, took care of everybody else, avoided the conflict, did what was expected of you. And I don't know, those strategies, they probably served you for a while. They maybe helped you build a life, helped you be successful, helped you belong. But I mean, let's be honest, in midlife, we just aren't as interested in those things anymore. And decision making can kind of have a new feel to it because what used to work doesn't fit as well anymore. And so the question becomes, if I'm wise enough to know that my decisions have impact and I'm discerning enough to recognize the internal noise, the chorus of voices in my mind, and I'm also no longer willing to follow the same patterns that I've always followed, how in the world do I make good decisions that I'm proud of and that I know are for me? Hey, Jen here. Have you heard about my signature program called Intermission? It's for women who are navigating any kind of life transition, like maybe an empty nest, maybe a career change, or maybe simply just wanting to be more intentional about what comes next in your life. If you're interested in learning more or joining the waitlist for the next Intermission cohort, there's a link in the show notes. Well, this series is called Enneagram Life Hacks for a reason. I have got specific Enneagram help for you. And so I want to start with a general Enneagram life hack that we all are going to use. All the numbers in the Enneagram have this life hack available to them when it comes to, well, honestly, when it comes to everything, but especially, when we're talking about decision making. And this is the life hack of utilizing the balances. Here's what I mean by that. As people who know the Enneagram, we understand that we're working from three centers of intelligence. We have thinking, we have feeling, and we have doing. And we know that depending on your number, we are strongest in one of those areas and we are weakest in one of those areas. Well, what we're constantly trying to do is balance them, is to use the right one at the right time in the right way. And so I think a really great tool for decision making is to simply utilize the balance of your centers. So ask yourself, and it doesn't really matter in what order. You could start with your strongest or you could start with your weakest. It doesn't really matter. But what do I feel about this? What do I think about this? And what do I want to do? To go a little deeper, what do I feel? So, in this, we want to identify the authentic feelings of ourselves, not of the people around us, not of, what we think we should feel. It's actually like, how do my feelings show up when I'm in this decision process? When we ask ourselves, what am I thinking? This is important that we're asking thoughtful, productive questions. So these questions need to not be the questions that get our mind spinning or that are centered in fear. These need to be productive questions. And you can listen to a lot of our podcasts where we talk about how to ask productive questions, but really asking solid questions. And then, what am I going to do about this? What is the next right action that I need to take? So, we want to make sure that this isn't grounded in anger or aggression, but just in thoughtful, action-oriented steps forward. So this is the first way to balance, is to go, what do I feel? What do I think? And what do I want to do here? And then to add another layer to this balance, you could also balance the time orientations. And so, again, just like thinking, feeling, doing, there is a past time orientation, a present time orientation, and a future time orientation. We are, depending on our number, strongest in one and weakest in another. So, ask yourself, what have I learned in the past that is helpful to me when I'm making this decision? What is my current present circumstance? What is the reality of where I am? And then what do I most desire for my future? It's amazing. These are such simple questions, but because we tend to lean into one more than the other, and because we tend to lean away from one more than the others, we don't ask them equally unless we're being really intentional. So go ahead and just grab a piece of paper, grab your journal, and ask yourself those three questions as well. What have I learned from my past that helps me here? What is my present reality? And what do I desire most for my future? When you combine those with your thinking, feeling, doing questions, this is a lot of information when it comes to your decision making that's going to really serve you well. Now, next, let's go to your specific number and talk about a life hack that's going to help you trust yourself more as you're making these important decisions in life. All right, we're starting with the emotion centered numbers this time. We're going to start with number two. So, number two, as you are making decisions, you're going to tend to over trust what you are sensing other people need and expect from you. You're going to under trust your own desires, hopes, dreams, needs. And we want you to balance those out. So you're over trusting one and you're under trusting the other. Let's balance those. What fear will sound like in your decision making process, it could sound like, what is going to happen if I hurt somebody with this decision? Just know that that is fear, and we don't make decisions from a place of fear. We make decisions from a place of love for all involved, including yourself. So, a great decision for a two includes consideration and trust for yourself and your own desires without guilt. For the type three, as you are making decisions, you're going to tend to over trust what is efficient, what will get the job done, what will be successful, and you're typically going to under trust what feels authentic and true and right. And what this might sound like as fear is creeping in is, well, I just don't want to fail here. I'm doing what I need to do to make sure that everything is successful and that I deliver. And this is not a place to make important decisions from because some decisions take more time and they are not efficient. Some pathways are not efficient, but they are important. So, as an Enneagram 3, a really great decision comes from a place of authenticity and not from a place of living up to someone else's expectation. As a type four in a decision making situation, a type four is going to typically over trust the emotional intensity of a situation. They're going to over rely on emotion and under trust simplicity and steadiness. We must balance those out. Let simplicity, let things, it doesn't have to be hard. Like let those things rise to the top to help balance out that emotional intensity. And what fear might sound like is, well, what if it isn't meaningful enough? What if I do this and then it's not enough meaningful and not enough emotional saturation to it? We really want to remind you, Enneagram 4, to make decisions not based on your emotional waves, on the emotional highs and lows, but to allow steadiness to be a partner in your decision making process. For the thinking numbers 5, 6, and 7, let's start with 5. 5 is when you are in a decision mode, you're tending to over trust thinking and analysis, synthesizing, and under trusting action and embodiment. So, to say that simply, you tend to feel safer thinking about it and analyzing it than moving forward and making the decision and putting action to that decision. But we really want to balance that out and know that you've thought it through and now you've got to make the decision and move forward. So, fear is going to sound like I need more information. I need more time to research. I don't feel comfortable yet. Remember, that's just fear and you are ready. Identifying a great decision as a 5 is when your decision comes with movement, comes with action, and not just the clarity piece. So it has to be a both and. As an Enneagram 6, when you're in decision making mode, you're going to tend to over trust the fact that you need to come up with all the scenario options, that you need to have external input. You need to have an authority figure okay the decision, that you need to lean into what would so and so expect or what would they do or how can I get their approval for this decision? So a person in authority. And you tend to under trust your inner knowing, yourself. Now, fear is going to kick in and it's going to say, but what if I get it wrong? What if I get it wrong? And that's where maybe some of the worst case scenario thinking kicks in, is when there's fear involved. But when you balance that fear with inner trust, with self trust, you know that a great decision includes that calm, knowing trusting of yourself and not just safety. Type sevens, as you are making decisions, you are definitely planning out for all the possibilities and you are considering all the fun things that could be going on. You tend to over trust, overthink about what's possible, and under trust the follow through, the depth, and the sticking with one thing. We want to balance those. Fear is going to sound like, what if I get stuck? What if I get trapped? What if I am limited here? And we need to recognize that that is fear and not wisdom. A great decision for an Enneagram 7 is when they're able to choose one thing and really stick with it and not need to continue making other escape routes or plans all the time, but they really can be all in on a decision. And now we're into the gut triad numbers. So, number 8, definitely gonna over trust your instinct and your gut and your ability to control things. That's gonna be super important to you as you are in decision making mode. And honestly, probably you're going to under trust the importance or the value of vulnerability and input from other people. So we want to really lean into allowing other people to speak into it, allowing yourself to feel that vulnerability as you're making the decision. Fear is going to sound like, I'll just handle it myself. I can do it my way. Recognize that that is fear and not strength. A great decision with an Enneagram 8 looks like allowing for support from other people and also softness in yourself. An Enneagram 9 who's in decision making mode is going to over trust the value of not rocking the boat, of keeping things status quo and avoiding any kind of tension. And what the Enneagram 9 is under trusting is their own priorities, desires, and dreams and hopes and goals. So fear is going to sound like, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. But we need to recognize that's actually fear of allowing yourself to matter in the world. So, great decision with the number 9 allows them to name what matters to themselves and to have that be part of their decision making process. For the Enneagram 1 who's making a decision, an Enneagram 1 is going to definitely over trust and lean into what's right and responsible and what is the black and whiteness of decision making. So they're going to undervalue the gray area, the fact that maybe there isn't a perfect decision to make and that that's okay too. So fear is going to show up for the number 1 like, well, what if I make the wrong choice? I don't know what will happen if I make the wrong choice. It's not okay to make the wrong choice. And that just isn't true. And so we want the Enneagram 1 to really do the best they can to make the decision they've got to make, but to know there probably isn't a perfect decision or a perfect way to make a decision. We want to remind the number 1 that a great decision allows for good enough and not just perfectionism or duty. Well, that's a wrap on this month's series, Enneagram Life Hacks. I hope you have had as much fun as I have had learning how to use the Enneagram in a practical way in your real life, everyday world. I'd love to hear from you in the show notes how this series has specifically helped you and what life hacks you'd like to have me hit the next time.